Peace, greetings. I believe this is on. Um, oh, got this little spark in the rising. Um, I just want to come and share with you all in regards to something that I usually go through my notes and see what comes out, like just naturally. It's rubbing against me. Bear with me. But anyway, y'all bear with me. I got this position. It's a first for everything, but I feel like you know, maybe I'll just hold it. I kind of don't though, because I want to talk. Anyway, did I have it there before? Okay, we'll try it right there. But what I was getting to, I was going through my notes and I was sitting here pondering about how much we have been in a conflict-driven society. Oh, give honor to source, to your highest source, power, God, most importantly yourself. But I come to like a self-realization of how much we're karmically, energetically clearing out when it comes to a conflict-driven society. Not just only that, but you're also talking about um, not just a conflict-driven society or environments that we grew up in, but also by how much and how long that has affected us. Um, I myself, from my childhood, and what I mean by conflict-driven is like if it's not centered around conflict, if it's not centered around dysfunctionality, abuse of power, anything involving some type of conflict, then there is no substance to it, or there is no type of true foundation to say, what really is powerful. So, um, I talked about this, I believe, months ago, expressing about like the 5 different types of dysfunctional family. But the reason that spoke out to me because I realized like when I look at my dynamic and what I grew up in and experienced, a lot of what I seen was conflict driven environments. People who they knew nothing else. They didn't value peace. They didn't value um, harmonious connections or, their value, or they didn't really know basically their reflection of what they valued was demonstrated in their actions. So, you know, a part of my journey and experiencing this and on my healing journey and healing, I realized like, wow, I've been coming across like when I'm traveling, going to certain environments, like let's say rural areas, but seeing the value in those people as well, people that what we call the hood. But just noticing when you just go across in another neighborhood where the mindset is totally different, the environments are different, and I'm able to just see myself in everybody. So there's a community center that I go to, and the beauty just of it all is just to see people who are crying out without even saying something, but more so how, again, they also, I can see myself in them because I can relate so much to how environments as such have been conflict driven because it is normalized for people that are of darker shade or that who are in America or in these certain areas to have succumb or been in environments that are conflict driven, that are surrounded by chaos in a way, that is surrounded by dysfunctionality or some type of experiencing some type of childhood trauma. And that childhood trauma is so relatable to um, being in violent upbringings, being in environments where they were mentally, physically, and abused. So even when you certain music or certain things that we listen to, it literally is conflict driven. It's like a lot of stuff we grew up, we hear about like bust that, do that, rah rah rah. Some may call it, I know Chicago, so they call it drill music. In the South, they used to call it crunk or, basically conflict driven, literally pushing the narrative of always being at odds or in some type of opposition, never pushing a narrative of being at peace or harmony or balance with self. So, um, this, the results of this, and from my own experience, has caught, is we're learning to feel secure and not just secure within ourselves again, but you're talking about environments that if they're conflict driven and there's so much dysfunction and what that does to the nervous system, the body, and so forth, mentally. You're talking about anxiety, you're talking about so many things to where I was speaking to a young man, and shout out to him, how, again, this topic of ADHD, and I feel like I can connect that to even my own experiences from growing up in these environments that were conflict driven. And you're talking about traumas, you're talking about a lot of things that has created this anxiety to keep one from focusing. And if you want to research ADHD, I got chapstick right here because I got time. If you want to research ADHD, just give you a little snippet. It's just like, people who suffer from like really trying to focus or have a difficult time of trying. And you can research, I'm just going to put it in my own words, difficult with trying to focus on one thing in that moment. But when the brother told me that, I was able to display like and relate to him like how things come to be and how you're not the only one. I was labeled, and then with that, I start to come into my own self awareness through my own life experiences that these titles, I start to decipher or differentiate, however you say the word. I'm about to jack that up, but basically become aware of my own patterns, behavior patterns through my own experience, and more so learning through life and so forth from other people, learning, researching things. But just hearing him say that, I realized that a lot of what he was experiencing had a lot to do with his mental health. You know, when we're talking about anxiety, when we're talking about trying to stay present, um, I was able to get a book again that I've shared in my community about this self care. And then in there, there's a topic about being present and talking about the five senses and questions you can ask yourself, like, what am I feeling? What am I hearing? So forth. And these things that help you stay present. But if we have grown up in environments that, again, conflict driven environments, places that we have experienced some type of abuse, we have experienced some type of trauma, then through this process, we have suppressed those things, because our mothers and fathers or so forth, whomever our caregivers were, have repressed their emotions. And through their actions and, day to day routine, they suppress their emotions and angers and frustrations, and this is, embedded or, buried into their DNA, into their tissue, the traumas they're carrying out through life and so forth, without ever feeling safe or secure within themselves to even talk about it in a healthy and a holistic way, not ever having that holistic exchange. And I realized that's what I was able, through my own experience, through my own healing and still, healed and healing journey, to be able to connect with people now, based from my own experiences, on the level of expressing to people like, yeah, you were labeled this, but you know, you're immediately outcasted. You're immediately put in a box. You're immediately put in a place where you may feel like you're not worthy, or you may feel like, you're devalued. And I'm here to tell you that's not true at all, because a lot of those things were to make little melanated boys, dark boys, um, such as myself, to feel, to be emasculated in a way, or to feel like they're devalued or not valuable to society, to the environment, to themselves, most importantly. And so, again, in these environments, a lot of what I experienced and talking to him about, it's like he wanted to, become a personal trainer. I believe, yeah, personal trainer. And I was expressing to him like, he told me like it was hard for him to focus. So I had to remind him of my own experiences, and not trying to force anything, because there was a time where I used to try to push things down people's throat, but realizing that you're just simply here to plant a seed and open and try and do your best to just, and in that planting seed, just open people's, um, bring people back to their self-awareness, because I compare the ADHD to becoming more self-aware. In our exchange, my self-awareness of being in an environment where we're inside of a gym, I'm talking to him, and in that exchange, I'm able, to see someone, two guys were playing basketball, and the guy made a great move. And in my talking to him, I'm still able to see it. And, I feel from my own experience, that's my just self awareness of my environment. And through that, I gave that great example to tell him, like, I can see that as a form of, well, not trying to focus on one thing, but I can see how people or society, or, your teachers or whatever it is, can label you with a ADHD. So with that, I said, it's not that I'm not focused on what I'm saying to you. I was just able to be aware of that as well. And so when I saw that, I brought that to his awareness, saying like, hey, I was able to still see that, but still know that I'm having a conversation with you. But someone else may perceive it completely different. So again, given that example, and some people may get that or not, it may resonate. But again, going back to being in these environments where we feel like calling is one thing, but I realize a lot of this healing and spiritual journey and coming back home to myself. I used to question why certain journeys that I was on. Why am I going through this? Why am I here? And then learning how to give gratitude and stay present, I realized that I was being brought on a journey. And just because, I had an interaction with someone that asked me that, did I have a degree in, you know, psych, psychology, or, mental health and so forth. My response naturally just authentic. I am my greatest therapist, in a sense, like knowing thyself. Like I know me better than anyone else. And again, I'm not disregarding and tell people not to ever, if they feel led to go get what some may call professional help, or, really go get therapy. Because I myself have considered it. Because again, I don't proclaim to know everything. But with that being said, I told myself like I don't compare myself to people who have certain degrees or this certification and so forth. certain experience can encourage one to do so. But what I'm realizing again is that the Most High, the Creator, Source, can call you, just as y'all may know certain biblical characters or certain people in religion, or more so in other cultures, that were called to places forced in their uncomfortability. And in this process of doing that, they rediscover themselves because they were able to put themselves. And that's what I feel like, even what I've always experienced, and more so a lot of you coming along a part of your journey and or healing journey, and coming into that self-awareness of what it is you're here to do, and being bigger than just not yourself, but being able to connect and see the oneness of all involved. So as you evolve. And so um that's why I realized, like, through this rediscovering, rebirth, unlearning and relearning that aspect of how self-aware I'm becoming, is because I realized that those versions of myself that I have accepted, that no longer I will neglect, no longer will I be, taking on burdens or pains or certain things from others, because I have to carry my own load. I have to unpack my own ish. And so with that, I realized, like, I'm able to now show up for myself. Then Spirit's like, okay, I want you to go here. And so these divine intervention, these connections, and these things that we think that is by coincidence, it's all aligned. And so instead of trying to force this connection here, force family to see you, force your partner, anyone else to see you, I always remind myself that I am here to be experienced through love, from love, with love, however you can say it. And that being said, it's like my connection to source, coming back home to myself. I realized that as a vessel, as a being, human, whatever you want to call it, I'm here to be experienced. We all are here to be experienced. So again, going back to this conflict driven society, this isn't just in the environment. You're talking about a country that constantly is at war, not with other people, and it may seem that way, but a lot of it is at war with themselves. You're talking about putting this energy out, doing these things, and it's coming back for a circle. So again, the awareness around a conflict-driven society, a society, or a governmental structure that does not promote peace, but they want it, but in reality they don't. They convince themselves that they don't need it. So again, when you look at these governmental structures, these corporations, where do you see the push of oneness, joy, fun? Where do you see this? Because again, the old narrative, the old world was centered around greed, selfishness, self-righteousness, um, just just only the individual rather than the collective. So again, the awareness around that can no longer be hidden. So in speaking with that brother, I realized, like, how much I can see myself, and where there were times when I was younger or driven by ego driven, and wanting to judge people because of where they were not, but where I was. And in that, you get a reality check. You get an actuality, like, hey, they're no different than you. They're no different than you. They're just as unique. They may be here. They may have this, so forth. But no one is more valuable than the other. No matter if, because while we were in the gym, there were some people in there what they call special needs, but I like to say they're unique. They're just as aware. Um, and you can see the divide amongst people, because some people feel, and I've been around people now. I was telling a brother in there, I was like, they're no different, bro. They're just on another realm of, I look at it spiritually. They're just on another realm of a different awareness. Their imagination is still there. They're unique. They're joyous. They're just going through their spirit, their soul, going through their own, experience as well. And again, a society that's not driven off trying to promote people as such. The uniqueness of people who, without it being so saturated in business and money. Again, a lot of these corporations, again, either conflict driven. When you watch your TV, when you see a lot of stuff, when you see people that look the same, doing the same thing, this trending of conflict, confusion, division, and no type of unity and oneness. So again, the effects that can have on people who constantly watch this programming, the news, the corruption and all these things. And I'm pretty sure like this is why a lot of us are called in certain environments. We're not here to save everybody. Because only you got to have your back no matter what, and then align with your tribe and people who see the same thing, who value that. So this even goes back to what have we not only been programmed to believe, but what we have been programmed to believe about ourselves. Because deep down, my inner conflict from being around conflict driven environments. And I talked about this on other previous videos of believing that I was supposed to be in relationships that were verbally, physically, mentally abusive. Then seeing how I spiritually were abused, trying to feel like I had to be a part of people who were of certain status or certain things. And in reality, again, those aspects of that had nothing to do with my authenticity, my my inner child crying out, my essence crying out for that peace, that harmony. So again, if we didn't see the programming young, our first zero, from in the womb of our mothers to 3, 4, 5 years of age, I realized that a lot of the healing, the inner battle, the inner conflict, the childhood woundings and so forth, I realized that being in these environments and now really doing the shadow work or inner work to now seeing how much that energy or that how much it really pays off. And I mean in a spiritual currency, in the aspect of facing my greatest fears or facing that inner conflict, to see how much that I was a part of a conflict driven society, whether that means entertainment, music, arts, a lot of things. you know there were times where, well, let's just be real. There were times where a lot of my artistry, for those that don't know and that will be new to this, is that I remember there was a time where I was creating something new, and I was battling with at the time whether I wanted to incorporate something from a previous relationship or something that related to that person. And in reality, that was an old version of myself that I wanted to bring into what I was creating. And in reality, it did not resonate. And so with that, I realized, like, what are you doing? That's not a part of the now or what you're trying to create your reality to be. And that goes back to that specific connection or relationship was conflict driven. It was very narcissistic. It was very controlling. It was, just all those things again that I believe myself to be, or learned from a young age, that from the lens of when I was younger and from seeing my mom and, her boyfriend, or just people in my family that again were in environments that were just dysfunctional, and they believed themselves to be that, so they showed up as such, and they knew nothing else. They knew not how to talk to people so they can get a reaction. So they didn't know a healthy exchange. They will gossip, or they will talk about things in a way to where it's like, this is the only way I can get a reaction. I will see connections like that, to where I will see my, at that moment where she was, but I'm not even going to just see women um, that will antagonize a man, or that will purposely nitpick You know, I experienced that, like nitpicking. Why you ain't doing this? You should do this. The slamming of stuff, all that. And again, I didn't realize how much this affected my nervous system. This, and long down the lines, my age developing into my 20s and 30s, like how much this affected my mental health and how much this, led me into self-sabotaging relationships and self-sacrificing myself because of these conflict driven environments. Because deep down, I realized I knew I desired and deserved peace or harmonious relationship. And I first had to establish that, again, what we're not taught with myself, not just everyone else. And that's another stage that I'm coming into my life, is that rather than being conflict driven, I realized that I owed myself all these things that I was giving so much of to other people. The compassion, and now learning how to have self-compassion. I was giving so much of trying to believe that um, I had to be mean, I had to be angry, I had to be frustrated, and I had to be impulsive. A lot of things that I didn't develop young that I should have, or not being around people who develop these emotional intelligence, who were secure. So again, a lot of these environments and why people display such behaviors is because deep down they do not feel secure within themselves. They do not feel safe. Not only do they don't feel safe in their environments, they don't feel safe within themselves. So again, you're talking about what you see a lot of adults or environments where in these places they're at their age now to where whatever their environment was as a child, that has lingered into their what we call adulthood. But that inner child, that their innocence is still there. It's because they're programming what they've experienced. They don't know anything else other than that. I had a talk, and this is real. Like I had a talk, um, I had a talk with a police, and really just exchanging certain dialogues of like, well, we don't want to make it about color, but in reality, you're talking about a society to where the conflict driven, to push the narrative of black and white being adjectives, but just to push that division of they should always, is an opposition always there. They can ever get along because of what has, the so-called slavery or the so-called captivity that have happened in the reality to all cultures, to all shades of people. So, but with that, and then even with that, I'm not gonna go too deep up in it, but with that, there were people who still of lighter shades help other people of darker shades. There were people that were darker help people that were of lighter shades. But in reality, the origins of all that, who began that? Leave you with that. Um, so just having that exchange again, you just never know how the universe or source, creator, God, whatever you want to call it, will align you with people where you're forced out of your comfort zone to have this exchange. And sometimes, those with spiritual eyes, those that are self-aware, you look past the what they have on and you can see within them. You put yourself there. And what I mean by that, just our exchange, you know, telling, this police like, hey, you know, there's anxiety around because of what has been programmed and pushed on television and so forth. There's a natural anxiety around seeing the police, a car, blue and red lights. There's an anxiety around naturally because here it is, the confusion even in you telling someone this is someone to protect us, but what we've seen and what people have, been fed with, to believe that the police or these people are here to serve and protect. And it's the opposite of that for a lot of people because it's like they're here to destroy and neglect. So it's not really that they're serving, and that's not all. It's more so, again, how things are balanced and how, you know, him at that moment being of a lighter shade and me darker. And I'm expressing to him, like, you know, for people to just think that in a society, and typically in the America, in that country, to where you see how certain powers that were push the narrative, or people who push this narrative of keeping that division of this whole black and white concept, to keep people away from really engaging and exchanging and really sitting down and really seeing how much they have in common. How much that just because you're this color or creed or whatever it is, that you don't have a drunk, or your mom or somebody or didn't experience physical, verbal, or such as abuse to for you to be led into that career of serving and protecting, or just a lot of things that people do to where not all are in that to, their intentions aren't to harm, or their intentions aren't to be egotistical when they do get this, position, what they call of power. But it's how, as I expressed to him, how that power has been abused through all these corporations and societies. How this has been shoved down our throats, people who are of darker shade or so forth, how we naturally can be perceived as always being angry, or always being in a state of dysfunction or confusion, or again, conflict. So, here they are thinking that naturally they're just as insecure or don't feel secure within themselves because they never know. You're talking about when I talk about conflict driven, you're talking about this as being in all type of corporations, societies, or environments. And what I mean by environments, I don't mean just communities. I'm talking about the environment in where you are, your career, the environments around, are these platforms or places really supporting, you feeling secure, you feeling seen, you feeling valued. And that's all across the board. Everything, all rims of things. So, and when you look at your YouTubes, when you look at your TikToks, all these things, again, I'm gonna get back on the subject of the police, but the gentleman, you're talking about conflict driven. And let's be real, it's authentic, it's what it is. Turning on your phone or going to that, and you're naturally Facebook, all these things, you're naturally scrolling and you seeing people who mostly look like me, and let's be real, some type of fighting, some type of women fighting, some type of men, little boys. And I mean, literally people, we don't even realize the programming that's happening with that and how much that could emotionally, mentally, spiritually drain us, or even feel that we should uh, naturally adapt to that, the idea of being or thinking. And so what it's doing is promoting, these I think it was a word coming to me like it's enhancing these neurotransmitters to activate, or you're taking in this to believe that that's what your reality is supposed to be, just literally conflict all the time. And what has happened is that that's what a lot of us have seen growing up, whether it be in home or television. And so a lot of us have tried to escape from that. And again, an environment to where, let's say, I was going back to the police, I was exchanging with him, like, you know, being scared and afraid are two different things from what I've seen. I said, I'm not afraid of you. I'm not afraid of anything. It's more so the feeling of feeling, your heart being a detector, or your being feeling safe and secure, and have not feeling safe and secure in environments where people that don't look like you, not wanting to have ish to do with you, not wanting to engage because, again, their own false programming, their own false sense of power because of what they have financially, or what they have basically in their so-called possessions, to feel a sense of superiority. And it's no different with people who have, let me make sure I'm good on time. And there's no difference than people